Alright. I do not tend to stream on Saturdays, but I didn't know if anyone would be interested in joining me on a Just Chatting stream today. I've, as usual, got the Discord voice chat open, and would be more than happy to discuss pretty well any topics you're interested in today. Um, Consider me, a soundboard to bounce off of, someone with whom you can discuss personal philosophies. I am happy to do whatever. At the moment, I am just sort of yapping away. But I'm happy to do whatever you think you'd like. Um, I can, as it says in the title, discuss history, politics, news, gaming. Actually, I need to add gaming to the title. I don't have that in there. Um, there we go. Alright. Title's updated. Whole idea of this channel is that it can be about pretty much anything, but the real goal is discussion, diversity of opinions, etc. And I'm hoping that some people who have time on their Saturday will hop in and join me. I understand at some level that this is asking more from the average viewer than a lot of just chatting streamers want to just sort of be there in the background and chat when they feel like it. This is a little more active if you want to join in the Discord, but of course, if you wanted to just be in the chat room and have me on in the background, that would be just fine. I have some time today. This may be a shorter stream, depending on if I get people hopping in. If I do, I'll probably hang out a while, but if I don't, I may go see if my dad wants to play some games later. So, welcome on in. Good to have you here. As the title says, you are welcome to join the Discord voice chat, discuss whatever topic you'd like. You're welcome to just put something in the chat, or if you prefer to just have a voice on in the background, you're welcome to lurk. Whatever you'd like. I'm here to be a soundboard, be a reference. I'll address, at the very least, the thing I've got up under my mood today. It is a quote from the TV show Andor. Oh, hey, Fred. Thank you. Glad you're here. Um, that feels more and more relevant every day. Um, it was something that when I watched the show in, I think, late 2022 was when it came out, um, it spoke to me of the previous administration, and now that that administration's back, I definitely am feeling it more and more every day. So I really have the whole idea of that fire hose of falsehood that is currently working its way out of Washington. The idea that 40 atrocities constantly will just wear people down. They can't. There is a point at which one's ability to be outraged is limited, and it also makes it harder. I was discussing yesterday how the Watergate scandal sort of rocked the nation, the election interference from a sitting president, but it was a single incident, so people could rally around that and go, this thing was wrong. Whereas if you've got an administration sitting there doing uh, things constantly that are negatively affecting people, you don't have that singular rallying cry where, uh, person A is like, hey, it's not okay that the administration did X. And person Y is like, yeah, the administration is bad, but I'm more concerned about issue Y. And person 3 is, going, yeah, but really, Z was the biggest problem. So it makes it harder to, gather a resistance against what's going on because the priorities are so fractured in the face of that sort of constant uh, flood of information and disinformation, obviously. But I the quote, it really spoke to me as something that was of value in the modern climate or the current climate. Um, Understanding that it is not just uh, something that they're doing. It is a strategy that they are enacting to wear people down, to make it harder to look at it and object to it. And I mean, if you, even Russell Vaught, who's currently heading the CFPB and was a major contributor to Project 2025, he has said we want to traumatize the federal workers. Like, is quoted as having said that. Um, and if you know anything about Russell Vaught, dude's insane. He's a Christian nationalist who genuinely believes that we're in the end times, which is one of the reasons he's a huge supporter of Israel, because in the Book of Revelations, the Jewish people needed to return to Israel and be in Israel for the end times to kick off. Guy is not mentally well and is in control of far too many people at the moment. But just Andor as a whole was phenomenal, um, phenomenally written, excellent, genuinely revolutionary media coming out of the Disney Corporation, which is a little funny. But I felt so strongly about it, and a lot of people did as well, because it was so well written and at some level quite realistic as far as what it takes to the kind of people it takes and the kind of ideas it takes to operate a revolution. Um, and I was quite impressed with that. But I also would be happy to discuss topics that are not politics. My God, if nothing else, I think this could be an excellent forum for escapism. If anybody's interested in throwing something in the chat to discuss, or hopping the voice chat, whatever. But let's see. I haven't checked the news today, mostly for my own sanity. But every once in a while, there's good news, uplifting news. I did see, and I have mentioned this on stream, but they just successfully cured a man in New York of sickle cell anemia, which is a huge, huge step forward. Now, the current, treatment is both painful and expensive, but it is currently possible for bone marrow transplants to cure uh, sickle cell anemia. Or at least it's been demonstrated in a single individual. Obviously, you need repeatability for that to be, scientifically reasonable. Yeah, I'm right there with you. I the constant attacks against the Department of Education, the CDC, putting the guy with the brainworm who doesn't believe in vaccines in charge of Health and Human Services. Um, and I mean, the real issues that I'm looking at on the horizon are things like the avian flu, which has jumped to rats, which is a problem because rats breed so quickly that it mutates pretty quickly once it hits rats. And rats are pretty, uh, biologically compatible with humans as far as things that affect us. So we have that, which we can guarantee that this administration is not going to deal well with. And we have the spread of measles, which is a fairly horrifying disease if you know what it does, because it does a lot of things. One of them is potentially just kill you, which is unpleasant, but I apologize, my microphone disconnected. Um, the other thing is you can survive measles, but it can erase your immunity to every other disease you've ever had. So one of the things, like, people would have chickenpox parties so that kids would get it when they were young and resilient. You could conceivably get chickenpox, then measles, then chickenpox again, because the immunity you had was erased. And I know a lot of people are getting their titrates checked to see if they are still immune to measles, mumps, and rubella, because a lot of people who had the vaccine against those remain immune to most, but not all of them, like 2 out of 3. And so a lot of people are getting checked. And I know I was reading someone on Reddit the other day who got theirs checked and was still immune to measles and mumps, but rubella had like phased out in their body basically. So they went and got another MMR. Um, the Yeah, every time I'm reading about a scientific breakthrough, it's like you have to be aware that they spent years getting there, and so the knock-on effects of us not being successful in the scientific community are going to come years down the line because it takes all that time for research. And the other like horrifying thing is that there are a number of projects that have been going for years that are incredibly close to breakthroughs that just suddenly had their funding cut. So I don't know uh, how certain things are going to go as far as that, but yeah, the constant erosion of, I mean, the constant tide of anti-intellectualism. Yeah, collapse of American scientific leadership. In 60 days, they have effectively destroyed 100 years of soft power that the U.S. spent time building up between things like USAID and various other agencies that worked in foreign countries, both to the benefit of those countries and to the United States, because you've got, like, China has been playing the long game in Africa for a while now, where they're not colonizing it physically, but they've been economically colonizing China by coming in and going, here's a road, here's a hospital, etc. Give us a nice deal on the local mineral rights kind of thing. And the U.S. was doing that in a lot of places for a while, um, but all of that is evaporating. Um, and the other problem is brain drain, because you've got all these people that are working in, highly lauded positions in the U.S. government that they're trying to kick out. And these are highly intelligent people who are in demand in their fields. And their fields are not exclusively in the US. So a number of them are shifting to Canada, a number are shifting to Europe. Um, I'm sure for those that speak multiple languages, they've got even more options. But basically we're going to lose a lot of them, and that's not coming back within this generation. It's going to take a hard FDR style swing back towards valuing some level of social security that we do not currently have. And the thing that horrifies me is people are going, "Oh man, I don't know if we can handle 4 years of this," and I'm not convinced it'll be 4 years. They've been ignoring laws this whole time. I'm not convinced they're gonna just go, "Oh yeah, it's the end of the second term." Yes. Brain drain is going to be bad. The rise of international corporations and universities courting smart students. Yeah, they've definitely been going, hey, come over here. Because that is an incredible investment for them. They don't have to train these people up. They already know their shit. They are good to go. They just basically need to be slotted in, over the pond. And so the United States is on average going to get dumber because fewer smart people are going to be here doing good work, which is perfect for the oligarchs that wanted this. Ideally, for them, they break everything that the government does down and go, "Hey, look, it's broken. You should give us a private contract to do that instead, and we'll charge you vastly more than it was costing you in taxpayer dollars." So basically, at this point, we're looking at billionaires trying to break the U.S. down and sell it for parts. Yeah, the admin is essentially cancer. If you survive it, you're always a cancer survivor. Uh, that is absolutely true. Um, the the issue is going to be deprogramming, if anything else, through things like reinstituting the Fairness Doctrine or removing the Citizens United court decision. But there are always going to be people who are currently MAGA that just will never believe that they were duped, or the ones who weren't duped, are never going to admit that they were wrong. Uh, and the period of mythology-backed prosperity wasn't entirely mythology. A lot of that comes back to the end of World War II, where we were a highly industrial country that was basically the only highly industrial country left in the world that hadn't just been bombed to shit for the last 5 years. And so you looked at American manufacturing at that time, and a bunch of women had just been in the workforce, so we had more skilled labor because all the men were out fighting, and there weren't enough left in the States to man the factories. And so a lot of those women didn't leave those jobs, uh, which improved our broader prosperity. Uh, we had a ton of money coming in because American steel was still a big thing. We were manufacturing everything here, and European factories were going to take, 5-10 years to get back up and running. And in the meantime, they were buying American, vehicles, machinery, etc. So we genuinely were extremely prosperous in that time. And a lot of people talk about the good old days of the 50s. Like, were there a lot of racial inequality issues? 100%. But one guy could have a factory job and feed a family of four comfortably. And this was about the same time that Eisenhower was, we had a marginal tax rate of like 90% over $1 million. And Eisenhower used that money to build the federal highway system. And the story behind that's actually kind of funny. He was a 19-year-old man in the U.S. Army shortly after World War I, who was tasked with going with a convoy across the United States to see how military vehicles handled the terrain, basically. And it took them 2 months to get across the states. And so he had remembered that into his time into office, and the federal highway system was his big project. And we obviously, from the 80s onward, you had 30 years, give or take, of real economic prosperity. Um, and then into the 80s, the outsourcing started. The factories started closing. We shifted more towards a service based economy. All absolutely true, but as far as prosperity goes, mention mythology because it was also papered over the fact that white supremacy, root of American fascism, was always here, might as well have aligned us with the Axis instead of the Allies under slightly different circumstances. Ultimately, the admin isn't an aberration, but a culmination. I do not disagree with you. As much as I personally hate Donald Trump, he is a symptom, not the root cause. Um, and this is not the first time that something like this has happened. If you're familiar with the business plot back in the 1930s, that was the first time that fascism came to the United States. And basically, it was stopped by a single man named Smedley Butler, uh, who prevented effectively a corporate takeover of the United States. And yes, the American fascism was always there. It's and if you look back at Madison Square Garden in 1930, 1936, 1938, there's a huge like Madison Square Garden was full with Nazis, and they had huge swastika banners. Like it's a hell of a thing to look at. Um, and hell, I mean, if you go back to the introduction of the Pledge of Allegiance in at the 1893 Chicago World's Fair, it used to be that the Pledge of Allegiance was said with hand over the heart and one arm extended out, palm facing down. We stopped doing that after the 40s for some reason, but yeah, the mythology for sure, and there's a clear push to try and bring back that mythology with the removal of Black Medal of Honor recipients from the Arlington National Cemetery website, the removal of the Navajo Code Talkers, the removal of various women, basically anybody who was not white and male, to sort of bring that mythology back into place, where anybody who accomplished anything of value was a white man, and they don't talk about anything else. They effectively are attempting to erase that history. Uh, so, yes, American fascism, no doubt, has been festering for a very long time. Honestly, the roots can probably go back as far as the Civil War, as far as us failing to really root some things out during the Reconstruction era. And some of that I think would have been better under Lincoln. I think his assassination was a real negative as far as how the U.S. continued following the war. But yeah, rooting out white supremacy is a whole issue as far as particularly in the misinformation age. I mean, we are living in an age where yes, everybody connected to the internet has access to the collected knowledge of mankind, but also if they go in with a serious confirmation bias, they will find echo chambers that confirm what they want to hear. And so I don't know to what degree what it will take for the administration that we currently have. It's going to swing the pendulum. But the last time we saw a pendulum swing of this nature, it was following Hoover, who a lot of people will throw out that Donald Trump is the worst American president. I'm inclined to say he hasn't quite hit Hoover or Jackson levels, but not for lack of trying. The only reason that he hasn't yet is the judiciary is slowing him down. I'm living in an age that calls darkness light. Yeah, yeah. Um, and the constant doublespeak and misinformation, particularly if you've watched any uh, conferences with Caroline Levitt, who is the mouthpiece of the administration, basically in the press room. Uh, just the constant lies about reality, and there are a lot of people who this is the real problem, right? Is you know in the 2008 election. No, prior to that, because I think that was really sort of the switching point. But say late 90s, there were discussions to be had, or even back to like the Reagan era. People could disagree on policy, but they generally didn't disagree on reality. Um, you know, this thing is happening and I think we should handle it this way. And then someone on the opposite side is like, well, I think it would be better this way. And the first person goes, well, that could, negatively affect this group. And the other person goes, I don't care. And so, okay, they have different ways forward. But reality at some level was reality. Whereas now you get a bunch of people watching, Fox, OAN, Newsmax, whatever, who aren't aware of what the president is doing because it's not reported on. And as far as they're concerned, that's their only source of legitimate news. So they're they don't know all of the things that are going on. And if you show them, they're like, nah, it's AI. It's not real. And I don't know how to get past that. Like, some of them are clearly lost. And I was talking yesterday a bit about how it would be easier if they were all evil, but that there are some that are just genuinely misinformed and lack any ability to critically look at information they're given. Like, I think back to the Pizzagate guy, right? Who was, following QAnon. Now, clearly, if you had any sense of critical thought, QAnon made constant predictions that were wrong, and then once every like 50 times made a prediction that were right. And again, confirmation bias, the people clung to the times that they were right. And they were being fed, a constant drip of misinformation. But the guy who went into the pizza parlor with a gun trying to save kids had genuinely good intentions. He believed that there was human trafficking going on, and he was willing to get himself arrested or, shot at to make that better, to try and help them. And clearly not the brightest bulb. He was not looking critically at that information. Play was to attack education and truth, so critical thinking skills decline and downslope. Made steeper by COVID, yeah. The long-term effects of COVID are going to be fascinating, those longitudinal studies in 20, 30 years. And thereby secure long-term power over an ignorant nation. Yes. Appreciate you being here. But yeah, very much so. The decline in education starting under Reagan and then sort of continuing to today has been a clear push by authoritarians who basically don't want people to question them. And you get a lot of this programming, particularly in religion in the US. As a heavily Christian nation, you get people who are taught, follow this authority, don't question it. It is always correct, and you should not, you know, follow any questions that you have to their logical conclusions. You should just obey. And so you get that young as a kid and then are pushed into an education system that has been defunded, and you don't necessarily get critical thought taught as part of that education. And then you are pushed into the arms of the Republican Party, who say, here's how it is, obey. And people fall in line because a lot of them simply lack any ability to think critically. And part of the problem is a lot of these people are now adults, and it is much harder to teach that to an adult than it is to a kid. Just because neuroplasticity in the brain as an adult is far more limited. I take this as someone who started learning Russian at 25, uh, and so I definitely understand how it is much, much tougher to teach an old dog new tricks, so to speak. Uh, but I think at some level we need to try with some of the people that aren't completely gone. Now, obviously, that's up to what you can handle as far as mental strain, but there is an argument to be made for trying to help people back into the fold and trying to show them how to think critically about things without doing your best not to at least openly judge them. So I'm I don't know. But yeah, the destruction of education is a strategy. Um, and I think that it's broadly working. Unfortunately, I think that 40 to 50 years of destroying education in the United States is coming home to roost. And that is a fix that will take place over generations. And I think in an America that does not hold the kind of power that it has over the past 100 years or so, because the world doesn't respect or trust the United States anymore. So, to what degree can we try and fix that? I think there's always a chance to improve things, but I'm also aware that barring a revolution, it is a slow and iterative process. So, uh, it's gonna take time. Um, which is not a comfort, I don't think. I read someone saying early in COVID in 2020 um, that it felt like living through the montage at the start of a movie that showed how everything went to shit, but that you were stuck actually living it in real time rather than watching it accelerate. And I'm definitely feeling that now. Um, Knowing that things are bad and going to get worse, and that basically, barring, a military junta or whatever, it's just going to take years of effort to fix. Um, if it can be fixed, and, things, I won't say things always get better, but things are somewhat cyclical historically. And fascism eats itself. There's no there's no fascist regime in history that survives long term because fascism requires an enemy. And generally, they pick a minority that they feel they can turn the general populace against, and they start pushing that direction. And when they're successful in effectively eradicating or pushing underground that minority, they need a new threat. And so over time, they destroy themselves because they are attacking their own society. And certainly they're attacking diversity of thought in their society. So they become less mentally agile. And as we were discussing earlier, the brain drain, where people who are smart enough and are desired by other countries can get out, and the general populace gets dumber. And so it, over time, will destroy itself. As I mentioned last night, Hitler's 1,000-year Reich lasted 12 years. So it's gonna go away. It's just a question of how long it takes, how many bodies will be left behind, and what it will take to try and fix the things that have been broken in the wake of all of this. And I believe that a lot of things will be fixable, but that the lives lost will be lost forever. Those thoughts, those ideas, those personalities that we will never have the chance to know in the long run because of, economic depression, starvation, whatever the current administration is going to spiral us into, those lives will be lost, and we can't fix that. What we can do in the future is try to prevent it, but it's not a coincidence that this sort of fascist takeover effectively couldn't happen while the generation that fought in World War II was still alive. But now that they've effectively died off, we don't have them telling their stories, their cautionary tales. We're suddenly back into fascism because nobody's left who really understands what it did. And that's actually a very interesting thing that I see with anti-vaxxers as well. When there were not anti-vaxxers, or at least broadly, it wasn't a movement, when the polio vaccine came out. Because people at the time knew what polio did. They saw it. It was inescapable. So, if the vaccine was available, you took that fucking vaccine because it was better than being physically disabled or dead or stuck in an iron lung. So I think we're seeing it with measles right now. It's going to take a pandemic of that nature or an epidemic of that nature to convince people again that it would be really stupid to not take advantage of the advances we've made in science and medicine over the past 150 years. But it really is, I think, something that cycles in that way because the people who have the knowledge die off. And you don't have... I remember I was reading the other day, Mitch McConnell was pissed the fuck off at RFK Jr. because he was, against the polio vaccine, and one of Mitch McConnell's siblings, because he's that old, had polio. And so he knows what the risks are. But barring that, I think you're just not going to see much in the way of long-term effects. I get the impression that a lot of this boils down to a need for people to touch the hot stove to know that it's going to burn them, rather than taking the time to learn from history and know that they are not better than the people who came before us, but to know that there is value in the wisdom of those people. Not all of them, obviously. Plenty of fucking idiots in the past, plenty of fucking idiots now. But it will take, I think, a lot of people getting hurt or injured by these policies, by lack of education, to really reinforce why it is necessary to encourage an educated and thoughtful populace. And the biggest fight that we're going to have is against billionaires, because for them, an uneducated populace is easier to steer. And they will use the intense amounts of wealth, capital, and power that they've accrued to do their best to prevent well-educated citizens. Apologies, my mic disconnected again. So I think that we are likely to have an FDR-style candidate, 5-10 years down the line. We are likely to have a serious push back towards social safety nets, but I don't know how bad it's going to have to get before that happens. Last time it took the Great Depression and the Dust Bowl. We're already looking at a potential Dust Bowl with climate change, and this has been a huge economic downturn just in the first 60 days of Trump's presidency, and it's not going up. It is going to get worse before it gets better. So the only question is, how much worse is it going to take to societally push back and try and fix this? I am of the hope that it will not be cataclysmic, but it is not impossible to me that the body count's going to be in the millions. I think it's unlikely we hit billions unless somebody pulls the nuclear trigger, but I do think probably multiple millions are going to die due to this. With the lack of social safety nets, the potential for starvation, the various food deserts in the US, particularly as prices rise. So I think for those who can survive it, hold on, push back, do everything you can to bring about that change. And I don't know. Here I am yapping on about politics again. I would love to, discuss something otherwise, but it's so omnipresent. And granted, I live, 45 minutes outside of DC where a lot of this shit is happening. So it feels even more present to me. But I would actually really appreciate a distraction from it. So if anybody wanted to throw something in the chat or hop into the Discord and talk about it, I would love to discuss, I don't know, gaming. New Assassin's Creed looks good. My dad wanted it, so I've got access to it. Um, yeah, I don't know. Anybody want to hop in? Join me? Oh, Jesus. Lawmaker booed during rowdy town hall after complaining the crowd is, quote, obsessed with the government. Not a good look, Wyoming. Granted, it's Wyoming, but still. Temper your expectations, I suppose. FBI employees reviewing Epstein files told to limit redactions. People named in JFK assassination documents not happy their personal information was released. Yeah, that's not shocking. Last of Us Season 2 just got a release date. Or at least I just saw the release date. Looks fucking great. I am looking forward to this. I will sit here and talk about The Last of Us for hours if someone wishes to jump in with me. Um, I don't know. Fed News, leakers to Musk, we are not Elon's servants. Good. Need more and more of those. Uh, ta, 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 ta. Do your part in changing the. Yes. Uh, this is a post on changing the Democrats' views on gun rights, which I would fucking love to see because there are a lot of single issue voters that otherwise agree with Democrats that won't vote for them because of that. Yeah, it's very important that they get the fuck over that. Yeah, at this point, it is not reasonable for them to push that way. Yeah, this guy's talking about single issue voters. Yeah, for sure. Sorry, I'm just sitting here reading stuff, but at the moment, I'm the only person in my own chat, so anybody who wants to hop in, feel free, but it's just me here. Um, so I'm getting some news in, getting. Yeah. That's exceptionally idealistic. Yeah, David Hogg is not helping. Yeah, Bloomberg money is a fucking problem. Yeah. That- mm. Honestly, again, it comes down to a two-party system issue, where with ranked choice voting, we would be in a much better place as a country. Particularly, I mean, it's multiple issues. It's both the first past the post system and the electoral college and the lack of third party choices. Yeah, it's a whole fucking thing. Zelensky defies Trump, hands off my nuclear power stations. Good. I'm really looking forward to the biopics. Eh, I hopped on for about an hour. I'll stick around for a few more minutes, see if anybody hops in, but I may go ahead and just have lunch, see if my dad wants to play some games, then I'll be back tomorrow evening. Possibly doing some Slay the Spire, possibly doing some just chatting, depending on what it looks like. I don't know. At the moment, I'm just reading news, and hopefully, I'm coming through on the mic reasonably well. I'm backing up a little bit just to get comfortable in my chair, but oh, George Foreman died. Grills everywhere are crying. Uh, Seeking quarter to unmask anonymous redditor. how someone's been allegedly defaming staff at a local elementary school. Uh, Defaming in what sense? I am not clear on. I need quotes, because my opinion on this is like defaming is an accusation. We're not talking like terroristic threats. Let's see. Failing to report incidents, stifling investigations, and ignoring instances of racism. According to the board, the comments were dishonest, disrespectful, and created a toxic work environment. The anonymous user also insinuated that staff members had acquiesced in the perpetration of racist acts in the school. High school student. During a lengthy Reddit thread about a high school student who died after being stabbed in Nepean? I'm not familiar with that location. The user accused OCDSB, superintendent, of ignoring safety concerns in the district. Response to another user, individual being sought by the board, described themselves as a teacher. Aha, ha 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 ha. Board said it's considering a defamation lawsuit against the person responsible for posting the comments, but Reddit denies OCDSB's claim that the information is necessary for it to determine whether to pursue a potential claim for defamation. OCDSB vigorously defending employees. In response to CBC's request for comment, OCDSB said board is committed to, quote, vigorously defending our employees against unfounded attacks and upholding our legal and ethical obligations. She wrote, the legal action underscores the board's unwavering dedication to creating a positive and supportive environment. Yeah, I gotta say, having not been there, this sounds a whole lot like them scrambling to cover their asses after failing to do anything right. Uh, yeah. Now, this is Canada, so I can't speak to what qualifies as defamation in Canada. Legally, I don't have a strong enough grounding in that to say, but were this a US case, uh, it should be noted that the truth is an absolute defense against defamation, and assuming this person is a teacher and is saying things that are true, they couldn't be charged with defamation in the US. NASA drops plan to land first woman and first person of color on the moon. I'm sure that has nothing to do with the current fucking administration. How about, yeah. Uh, that's election interference, Mr. Musk. Color me unsurprised. Pope Francis to make his first appearance in 5 weeks. Fucking hey. I figured he was not alive at this point. Uh, yeah, the picture looks like he's on a lot of different corticosteroids, which wouldn't be surprising. Woman killed during conjugal prison visit in California. Like, during the visit or in like a prison riot? Because those are two different stories. Coroner said she was strangled to death. Yeah, that's a bad. Yeah,
Jesus. All right. Tesla owners trading in their EVs at record levels. Yeah, good fucking call. I do feel genuinely bad for the people who, bought their Teslas before it was clear who Elon was as a person. But fuck, it's pretty well poisoned as a brand at this point, certainly internationally. All right. You know, had a good conversation with Fred, but I will be hopping off here. Just wanted to hop in and stream for a little bit, kind of yap. Thanks to those who dropped by, and I will be back tomorrow evening after work. All right. Everybody have a good one.